Pain keeps coming. Today's physical therapist, Dr. Tanya, shows us how cognitive listening and trust accelerate healing, the three steps to recovery, and simple PT tricks at home that can help you recover faster. Now, before we start, follow, subscribe, and leave a five-star review so more people can find practical science-based help. Now, welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi, where insight becomes action. By the end of this episode, you're going to know how to build trust with your body, how to break the injury cycle with posture, movement, patterns, what matters most, and what you can try at home before costly procedures. Welcome and say hello and share who you are.
Hello, I'm excited to be here on The Advisor, and I am a physical therapist. I've practiced for 24 years. I was a trainer before that for 10 years before, and I've always had my own injury issues throughout my life. And so I'm just really excited that I can maybe help spread the healing journey for anyone out there who might need a little guidance.
I love that. And when did you like realize, was it when you had your own injuries or when you were working with clients that you realized, that listening and trust can really shorten the recovery time?
I think throughout my career, but definitely when I was about 18 years old, and I had to see multiple medical providers, and there were people who listened to me, and then there were other people who it's like they didn't even know I was a person when I walked in in the office. And so that was probably my first impression, which will stay with me forever when I'm treating a patient. I can never, forget what it's like to have someone actually listen to you and to listen to your story and then proceed with their treatment, um, and seeing you as a whole human being.
That's so true, and sometimes sadly those things stick with us. When we have a bad, experience, it's sometimes hard to let go of it. It just sticks with us. But in a sense, you could use those moments like you did, and you turned it around and use it as a positive, motivational experience where you were like, that's not going to happen to anyone else. I'm going to make a change. So that's really good, that you turned it around like that.
Thank you. And there's an official thing called the cognitive listening approach, which basically is about that, about listening to the patient's story, their full story, but also teaching the patient to listen to the feedback that their body gives to them and not so much to the fear, based things that enter all of our minds when we're upset and when we're injured. And studies have shown that if you approach patients in this manner and you give them time and space to tell their story and to sort of accept what's going on with them, that it launches them into a better healing journey. So then you can start doing your procedures and your techniques and things like that.
Yeah. So how does, listening to cognitive your outcomes, like how does it affect the outcome? Like by listening, by really focusing on it, does it increase the recovery time?
I think it opens the door um, to belief, to actually believing that something can change their situation. And it sort of clears the territory, so
Yeah.
that they are, willing to sort of to accept what you may have to offer. And then once the patient is encouraged and they realize that they're part of the healing process, they're not just there for someone to do something to them. um,
Yeah.
I believe it opens up like a dual relationship to healing, and they're more
Yeah.
encouraged. And when you're more encouraged, you're actually going to perform better and you're going to do more. A lot of it also has to do with the narratives that we tell ourselves. We all have these various narratives. Exercise never works for me. I always get injured, that sort of thing. And really unpacking that a little bit and teaching the patient about guarding and about movement. how guarding is a good thing originally. When we first initially, it's a good thing because our body is trying to protect ourselves and immobilize it so that it can heal. But when guarding goes on for too long a period of time, then that becomes part of the problem. We actually have signals in our body that turn on for healing when we start to move. There are things like, a growth factor hormone, which is responsible for repairing your tissues and healing your tissues, even brain derived neurotropic factor, which regulates your mood. These things, studies have shown that these things are turned on with movement. There's almost like a switch in your body that happens when you do this. Even there's an inflammatory reset that also can happen with regular, of course, appropriate movement. So it really is medicine. When people say that movement is medicine, we have a pharmacy inside our bodies. And
Yeah.
one of the things that opens it up and, brings it forth is movement, the proper movement, of course.
Now, when a clinician is listening and they're hearing these signals, what should a patient say if they're feeling these signals and they're trying to communicate with their clinician? How should they communicate so they have a better understanding so they can get help?
That's a good question. I like to break it down into types of movement. When like so with the back, for instance,
Yeah,
generally people have flexion issues or extension issues. Like they have
yeah,
more problems when they bend forward or when they go back. And that is related to actual diagnoses. H and P's, herniated discs, actually tend to come out more when you bend forward. Stenosis type symptoms come out more when you bend backwards.
yeah.
So I will just ask them, is this better? Is this better? Is this worse? So if they can really sort of start to communicate the feedback they're getting from their body and sort of turn off the fear that we all have when we're injured, but to actually focus in on, okay, this particular movement and believe that there actually is a method to the madness, that there is a mechanical nature to pain. And certain movements will turn on pain, certain movements turn off pain. That gives me, as the clinician, information about what their body needs and how to tailor the program towards them. Because even when their MRI says one thing, a lot of times their function is telling me that something else is driving their issue, their pain. So
Yeah.
it's the body trumps everything and what it's telling you. So if they can just report, specifically and analyze themselves when they're at home, what movements can I do? What movements hurt when I do them? Which movements are neutral? That is, that's the launching platform, to healing or even to your self-healing.
I love that. Now, what are the signs that a clinician is truly listening, and what should a patient say if they feel unheard?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, I would say go to someone who actually listens to your story when you walk in the door and
Mhm.
they're doing an initial evaluation on you. If the
Right,
person is cutting you off and not actually letting you complete your story because they have to get out of there in 10 minutes, you know,
right.
that unfortunately is something that happens a lot. I would, you know, I would try to talk to them about, like letting them know that, look, this is really important. I'm not going to dwell on this forever, but
Yeah,
I need you to understand, how this is affecting me on all realms. And it would
right.
really help me move forward with your program if you would take a few minutes to listen to this story.
I like that because a lot of times I hear from so many patients, my doctor doesn't understand me, and the doctor says I can only do so much. The patient has to communicate with me because, in order to really get a good, outcome, both the doctor has to be willing to listen and the patient has to be willing to open up and express what's going on, express the signs, maybe even take notes, I think. Sometimes if they feel certain things are going on, keep a little notebook. Today I felt this sign or this uncomfortableness or this pain. So when they do see their clinician, when they do see their physical therapist, they could say, this week, I experienced X, Y, and Z, and I noticed that it was happening maybe more during the day than it was the night, or and just give the clinician an idea of what's going on, so the two can communicate, and the person can get the best care possible.
Absolutely. If you can analyze your own symptoms before you walk in the door and have a concise list of every time I sit, every time I bend over, I get this pain, but when I'm standing, I don't have it at all. These are
Yeah.
all major clues for the practitioner to help work out what's going on, and sometimes we're in a lot of pain, and so we're in pain and we come in,
Yeah.
but if you can take a moment to analyze it yourself, like you said, and write down a few things or some patterns, morning, night, every time I sit, every time I walk, that sort of thing will really help the clinician figure out what's going on with you.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Now, how does the trust between the patient and the therapist translate into a faster progress?
Hmm, good question. Well, I think you skip over the resistance
Mm, yeah,
because if you don't develop that trust, you may feel like you're pushing ahead and we have to get this done, we have to get this done.
yeah,
But the person is never trusting you, and so they're not really going to believe what you have to say or try it wholeheartedly. And that extra time that it takes to speak to someone and to develop that rapport and that trust, there's actual studies that I've read that
yeah.
show that doing this improves people's outcomes for low back
Right.
pain, I think was a study that I read. And so
Yeah,
even though it may feel longer, it actually it'll speed things up down the line, and
yeah.
I believe you will be able to progress faster later.
Oh, I agree with you. Sometimes people have bad experiences and after that they just close up. And I've noticed that, everybody goes through like situations where, an experience might be bad, with anything. But, you can't let that stop you from progressing in the future. So if you did have a bad experience, you can't let it stop you. You have to be open-minded and you have to be able to keep trying, because and not every clinician and not every physical therapist and not every doctor is meant for you, and if you don't feel comfortable, I think you should, you keep looking for that doctor or keep looking for that clinician or physical therapist until you feel comfortable and you say, this is the one, because I've had that experience where I've been to, physical therapists and I didn't have a good experience. And then I looked around, found great physical therapists, and then I had a remarkable recovery. Sometimes you just have to, be a little open-minded and say, if this doesn't work, I'm going to keep trying until I find the right one.
Yes, you have to find someone that you click with, because that also helps build the trust relationship. Um, yeah, that is definitely important.
Now, with one common story, patients tell themselves about pain that quietly slows healing, and how could you refrain from that? So, do you have a story that you've heard from patients that they tell themselves that something negative, and it actually slows down their progress because they're not really walking in with a positive mind frame.
Yeah, most of the stories that I have are similar to the one that you mentioned. They come in and they're afraid to move because all they know is that movement hurts. And they're
Yeah,
perhaps someone who hasn't exercised their whole life and they don't know that relationship between movement and good pain and bad pain and that
yeah,
sort of thing. And really, I think. again, to listen to what they have to say, to not mow over it, but, to be gentle with them and to teach them about how gentle movement actually helps reset the inflammatory process. Gentle movement can even help increase the signals to the body to turn on growth, to pump out growth factor and to help muscles heal and things heal, and teaching them the balance between listening to their body and that they may have some pain. A little pain is okay, maybe like a 3 out of 10 pain. The body is wired so that if you've had pain in the past, it alerts you at an even stronger level. Don't
Yeah.
do that. That hurt you before, that hurt you before. And the wiring actually gets a little in overdrive, becomes in overdrive,
Yeah.
especially after you have been in pain for a while. So sometimes it's the reaction of your body trying desperately to protect you, but sometimes it's
Yeah.
an overreaction. So if something is like just about a 3 out of 10, and it bothers you a little bit, like after you do the exercises, generally that's okay. But if you're doing
Right.
something and it's reproducing your exact symptom pain,
Yeah.
it's escalating, and then you have this response 2 hours later, which is an inflammatory response, or the next day where you're incapacitated, that
Yeah.
obviously is not the good kind. So find the middle ground. Little pain's okay until and the body will eventually reset itself so that it's not overreacting to
Yeah.
to the movement.
I love that. I love that. Now, what are the three steps to recovery? Walk us through them in order.
Okay. Um, the 3 steps, the program that I usually perform with my patients is based upon a functional manual therapy technique from the
Yeah.
Institute of Physical Art, and it's like a three-legged stool. So we first look at all the mechanics, like are the fascial tissues moving properly? Are the joints rolling properly in the socket? And so I investigate that, I evaluate, investigate that. And so because if and a lot of people, they don't get pain until 20 years after they've had a faulty movement pattern, hello 40s and 50s. and, and you can do all kinds of things with your body when you're younger, and it's like it just takes it. But
Yeah.
20 years later, you actually have developed these tightnesses, these restrictions, these things that pull your scapula off to the
Yeah.
side, or something in your body, and then that kind of hardens and tightens, and you have to release that. So, I investigate that. I use a functional manual therapy approach to releasing those tissues. And then, so that's the mechanical. And then the neuromuscular step is retraining that exact movement pattern. So
Right.
it's not like, oh, let's just get in the gym and do these big group muscle exercises. Like I'm giving you very specific movement patterns that are movement patterns that were lost in your body. And we're reinstating, that shoulder to roll in the socket. When you lift your arm, the shoulder joint is supposed to roll down in the socket. And oftentimes it starts lifting up in the socket when we have faulty movement patterns. So exercises to specifically retrain that, and
Hmm.
then and build strength and improve the connection. And then the third step is just to repeat it, to
Yeah.
repeat it enough, and have a program where you're repeating that particular movement pattern so that the body starts to do it automatically. And
Mhm.
that takes time to do that. You can't do that in 6 sessions that
Yes.
the insurance company gives you. Not usually, unless you're 16, maybe,
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
20. Um, and so I have an analogy. I don't know if you want to hear it. Like I
I
have
want to hear it. Yes.
kind of simple, but so my landlord came in and he changed the door, the way the side of the refrigerator door that it opened to the opposite side of the, opened on the right before and then suddenly was
Yeah.
opening on the left. And I knew in my mind that he had changed it. I knew that it opened to the opposite side. But for like 2 weeks, every time I went to the refrigerator, I went to the old door, the old pathway, the old
Yeah.
neuromuscular pattern to open. And I was like, oh, I know that, Now I had a good incentive because I was getting to food or to water, and I
Right.
immediately needed to do that. So I was like, okay, I have to open it from the opposite side. Then 3 weeks later, you know, about 20-30% of the time I started going to the proper side to open it, but I would still go
Yeah.
through and then eventually, after probably about 6 to 8 weeks, you're not thinking, you just go. Then I started to do it every time. The
Yeah.
body, the body's the same way with these movement patterns. We've been doing them for so long, the faulty compensatory patterns, that you really have to be patient and you can't beat yourself up. You have to realize that you're retraining a whole new pathway. You're carving
Right.
out a new pathway in the woods, and so it just takes time and repetition. And then
Yeah.
eventually it does start the proper movement patterns that are going to keep you healthy are going to happen automatically.
Right. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Now, why do injuries keep coming back for some people? Like, what are the usual hidden drivers? Because for a lot of people, the injuries just come back. And I think we talked about this a little bit before the show. Some people, they get, they do their exercises or they go for surgery and, everything's fine and grand. And then all of a sudden, the injuries start to redevelop itself.
Mhm. I personally think that people need regular tune-ups, kind of like your car.
Oh, for
You wouldn't
sure.
drive your
Yes.
car for 40 years and you'd be amazed that it still ran if it, you wouldn't say, oh, it's a bad body or it's a bad car. You're
Yes.
like, wow, look at
Hmm.
this thing. It's 40 years old and it's still running so wonderfully with the
Yeah.
glitches. So the answer to your question is a bit like the example I just spoke about. A lot of times those three pieces are not addressed, in an
Yeah.
exercise program, the mechanical, the neuromuscular. Most people address the neuromuscular, and then the motor,
Yeah.
like the repeat. So you have to like break up those compensatory patterns. You have to let the body move. And oftentimes that doesn't happen. A lot of people even go to therapy and they're like, okay, let's strengthen your quads, do these three exercises. And you get the
Hmm.
quad strong, but you haven't really changed the way they walk in the world or the way they go upstairs, or how they're engaging when they're not thinking about it, when they're
Yeah.
talking to their friends and they're walking down the street. So I really believe that the sometimes the mechanical doesn't get addressed,
Hmm.
specifically in the fascia, and then I believe the proper strengthening, like the very particular proper
Yeah.
strengthening doesn't happen. And but the body's so amazing. If you strengthen it a little bit, it'll kind of initially it'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm good. Look at me. Let's keep going."
Uh-huh.
Whatever. But it comes back if you don't really go through all the pieces of the puzzle and sort of
Yeah.
rework the system.
It kind of reminds me like people are so impatient and all of a sudden they're doing their physical therapy and they're going for their treatment and then all of a sudden they feel good and they stop. And it's kind of like, when you're sick and they give you antibiotics and you know what, you feel good. I'm not going to take the rest of the bottle. And the doctor says, make sure you take the whole thing because it's not going to be completely out of your system. And the same thing goes with physical therapy. Sometimes people will just like, oh, I feel good. I don't need this anymore. And then all of a sudden, their body isn't completely healed. They need to really continue, and then they end up back to where they were because they didn't continue and do what their body needed them to do.
I couldn't agree more. Occasionally, I'll get a patient who'll call me that I hadn't seen in a while, and they'll say, "Hey, my symptoms are back," and I'll say, "Well, are you still doing the exercises that I gave you to do?" And they're like,
Yeah.
no, I stopped those 3 months ago. I'm back at the gym doing the gym exercises. And they're like, well, can I see you again? I'm like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you just try, go back to the stuff I gave you for a couple weeks and see how you do. And then if you still have something going on, then
Right.
we'll make an appointment. But oftentimes these are very specific exercises I'm giving them that are particular to their body's tendencies, and
Mm-hmm.
they and there's sort of lost movement patterns, that we are reinstating, and they still
Yeah.
need more motor training, obviously. And and they don't understand that these deep exercises that work the tonic muscles, the deep
Yeah.
muscles in your body, stabilizing muscles, are more important. Also, when you strengthen the big muscles on the outside, the ones we all like to look at, you know, and it makes the deeper muscles weak. So
Yeah.
the deeper muscles have to be, if you're going to up your strength training, your, phasic muscle, big group exercise, you have to up your core training too, because that imbalance will cause
Yeah.
symptoms to come out, and if you have to
Yeah.
choose between one or the other, choose the core, choose the deep muscles that hold, they're like the nuts and bolts that hold your steel building together.
Yeah.
And you can't just pile more and more steel on top of your building if you don't have enough of the inner workings, the nuts and bolts holding it and preparing it for those strong contractions.
Oh, 100%. Now, how do you help people return to activity with progression so they don't, yo-yo between rest and re-injury?
Rest and re-injury. Rest and re-injury. Well, there's proper rest. There's
Mhm.
meaning in your daily activity. I talk a lot with my patients about your marathon. You wouldn't run 6 marathons in a week, even if you
Right.
were the top marathoner in the world, and
Yeah.
expect your body to be okay. So for your body with the injury that you've come out of,
Right.
walking, it's New York, but you walking 10,000 steps every single day, even though you were feeling good, it's probably not wise if you were
Yeah.
only doing 2,000 before that. So I
Hmm.
try to teach them about properly add a day or two in there for recovery. If you
Right.
walked and then you did two routines, balance your week. Think about the whole week ahead of time and what you're going to be able to do, and
Hmm.
think about your physical activity, functional, that just going about your day, and make sure you're getting sleep, of course, and make sure you're alternating with some rest time in there so your body has time for recovery.
Yes, 100%. And what I notice too sometimes with people, especially as they get a little bit older, they start resting too much and they're in these aches and pains and they have they can't move well, but they're on the couch too much. And you really need that circulation. You need that body, even if you walk around your neighborhood and you get some exercise, the circulation of blood flow is so important because a lot of people will get an increase in pain in their body because they're not moving it enough. I can't stress that so much. Like I hear people complain all the time. I hear my family members complain all the time. It's like, what'd you do today? Well, I was sitting on the couch and da da da, da, but they're not moving.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's difficult when you get older because a lot of people have arthritis and it actually hurts in
Yes.
your joints to hurt, to move, and so in everything we do is impact, especially here in New York, we're walking on concrete all the time. So your body really needs more rest between that impact work and doing non-weight bear. I find that with older patients or people with a lot of arthritis, it's really
Yeah.
good if they build themselves up in a non-impact way, like exercises where they're lying down or exercises where they're not, it's where they're not walking and carrying bags all the time or going upstairs, because it's
Yeah.
a way to get strong with your joints unloaded so that
Mhm.
when you load your joints, they will be able to handle the load better if you allow recovery time and muscle building time.
Yeah.
So I would definitely alternate these upright tasks with um, supine lying down tasks as well. And do just start with gentle stuff. It doesn't have to be some big, exhausting hour-and-a-half workout. Again, the research shows that just a little, like small movement that feels okay, even though it may feel like you're doing nothing, regular, frequent, small, safe movement helps turn on all of these beneficial factors,
Yeah.
BDNF, growth hormone, inflammatory reset. Uh, plus, it helps you recover as well.
Yeah. It's true. And now, can you give us some examples? Like, most of our listeners are on audio, and we do have some on YouTube and Spotify, but the majority of people are on audio. If you had to explain a couple of simple exercises or just a couple of movements that they could do to help them, with just getting better circulation, maybe helping them if they have arthritis or just any joint pains, that they could do at home, that would help them, especially like if you live in cities like New York or even, even suburbs too, if you're not always going in the car, and you're stuck in the house, you need that movement.
Hmm. Yes, barring any major medical conditions that they, that I won't know about,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I'm not treating them,
Right.
so they should take, responsibility for all of that and talk to their doctor, find out what they can and cannot do. Some
Hmm.
gentle, easy things that one can do, especially as you're getting older, if you're injured. I've found that changing a few of the seat cushions can make a huge difference. A
Mhm.
firm, flat seat cushion on your sofa or on a chair that you sit on that helps you sit a little higher,
Yeah.
creates more space in the hip joint. It can help realign your back and your neck in a better position. That's one of my magic tools that I use on myself when I get an injury, and it makes the difference on whether I heal or I don't heal. Um, so, you can buy these cushions, these foam cushions at like a medical supply place, or who you
Yeah.
can probably find something at Home Depot or Bed Bath and Beyond. They're not picky, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. But you could just put it on top of your cushion and, have it there for about 4 to 6 weeks while you're healing, or, if it's just feeling like too much to get off that sofa. That creating more of a loose pack position for the joints will definitely create more, allow the joints to have more nutrition and make a big difference in your alignment. I mean, some gentle weight shifting, even if you're in sitting, like noticing before you even move, how much weight do I have on my left cheek versus my right cheek right now?
Yeah.
And very often you'll notice that your strong side, even when you're sitting, you'll have
Mhm.
all your weight on that left leg that's strong, and you won't have any weight on the right hip that's been bothering you. So
Yeah.
something simple like shifting to an even weight on your bottom
Hmm.
will actually prep you to bear more weight when you stand
Yeah.
and to even out the firing patterns in your spine and all the way up your neck. So noticing and trying to sit evenly, barring any major pain from doing so, and then doing a little weight shifting
Mm.
and sitting is good. And maybe a little hip hinging. Again, should not have pain with that. And, I'm assuming you have no medical conditions that, or injuries that would promote.
Maybe I'll put my Fit watch on and see if I can burn any extra calories when I move back and forth or I move side to side.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. I mean, we have all this technology now, so even having something that beeps every hour or something to remind
Yeah.
you to get up, because being
Right.
in one position, especially as you get older, not so good. You're not
Yeah.
pumping oxygen and nutrients into your body tissues. So
Right.
just having something where you change positions regularly throughout the day. I had a professor in physical therapy school years ago, we'd have these 2, 3 hour classes. Now we were like 20, 30 years old, but he would make us get up every 20 minutes, because it was so bad on your joints just to sit in one place. And we were young,
Right.
so
Yeah, yeah.
triple the age or double the age, and it's even more necessary.
Oh, that's so true. You don't think about those things. Like my husband's a chiropractor and he'll come into my office and he would yell at me the way I'm sitting because you don't realize sometimes you might be leaning more towards the left or you might be like in a position that's really bad for your legs and your hips or your back and you're just so used to just, getting into these positions that you don't even think about it. But movement back and forth and movement side to side and just checking your body, just trying to be more aware of how you're sitting. Am I sitting straight? How is my posture? Because it does, just like they say, sleep on your back. It's the best way to sleep. And a lot of us will go to the side and this and that, but then you wake up and you have all these aches and pains. It's because the way you're twisting when you're sleeping, you're not even aware of it. It's so true. That's really great advice that you just gave. I really like that. Now, before someone considers injections or surgery, what PT tricks at home do you recommend they try safely?
Hmm. PT tricks. Uh, Um, well, some of the ones I've given you, of course, when you first have an injury, just ice is generally good if it's hot or if it's irritated. That brings down the inflammation. Contrast baths are really nice, whether it's your foot in a tub of water,
Yeah,
alternating cold and heat multiple times, about 5 minutes each. The heat helps push more blood into the area with the circulation. The cold
yeah,
the cold helps decrease inflammation. So some
right.
you very often need that just to calm down an injury, but at a certain point, because of guarding and because of non-movement, the heat will help you and help, create more nutrients for the area. Um, PT tricks. Positioning, we've already spoken about. Positioning
Yeah.
is when I think of the times that I've had injuries, and I have recovered from so many injuries on my own without going to a doctor, which is not always, if you don't know what you're doing. But every time I'm amazed at how positioning makes the difference in how I heal, or whether I heal or don't heal or injure or re-injure. Having your elbows, on rest, on a chair rest, and having the chair rest sit an inch above where they naturally fall to take the weight off of your neck or off of
Right.
your shoulders. More than anything, I would say positioning, positioning, positioning.
Yeah. I agree with you. Now, Dr. Tanya, listeners were promised 5 concrete actions. Would you please share 5 things that they can do this week to recover smarter and prevent a re-injury?
Okay, I'll see what I can come up with that we haven't already discussed. So, number one, listen to your body, not your mind.
Right.
And follow suit, even if it doesn't fit with your schedule, even if you want to get 1,000 things done this week,
Yes.
listen to your body over your
So important.
ego, and over what you think you should be able to do.
Yes.
Um, protect, protect, protect for a short period of time. Notice the mechanism of injury that caused it. Like you felt the most pain recently when you
Yeah.
bent over or when you bent backwards, perhaps, and avoid that for like 2 weeks. Like just
Yes.
avoid it so that your body can start to heal. So notice mechanism of injury, and generally you do the opposite. Again, that should feel good, not bad. Uh,
Right.
I would also say use your cushions and your supports around the house. Lift the cushions on your chairs, support the injury. It's not a matter of whether you can walk or not without an ACE bandage, but
Hmm.
whether you are putting too much load on that joint over
Yeah.
the course of the week. So decrease the load that you are putting on the joint by wrapping it. Even if you can walk without it,
Yeah.
decrease the load for a couple weeks and graduate the load over time. And I think we have one more. And what is that going to be? Um,
Well, I
go see a very good physical therapist.
yeah, there you go. Like yourself, definitely, 100%. Now, can you tell us about the services that you provide?
Sure. I have a boutique physical therapy practice in Manhattan. 3 days a week, I have a concierge service on the Upper East Side where I go to people's homes. And 2 days a week, I have an office in the Flatiron area near 28th and 5th. And anyone who's not on the Upper East Side can see me there. I do 1 hour sessions one on one with me. There's no aides, no helpers. You're with me one on one in a room for an hour, intensely focusing on your body. And I just, I believe in listening to the patient, and I believe that the body, any age, can heal and can thrive.
Yes, I agree with you. Now, where can people find you? If they wanted to find you, where would they go?
Sure. My website is tonicpt.com and all of my information is on there. I'm on Instagram at tonicpt4, like the number 4U, just one letter, tonicpt4U. I'm on Learn Worlds. I have some free courses and some paid courses on the Learn Worlds platform, tonicphysicaltherapy.learnworlds.com slash let's see, I'm sure I'm somewhere else too, but those are the ones that I can off the top of my head.
I love it. So we'll put all those in the description so people can find you. This has been amazing. I got to tell you, I really love hearing what you have to say because you gave such great information. And, a lot of times people don't realize the importance of physical therapy and how much it could help with the recovery, how it could help with different conditions, and how you could simply, learn a lot of these exercises and repeat them at home and really, it could really help with your recovery time. And like you mentioned also, having good mindset and really thinking positively and really communicating well with your doctor and, and also listening to your doctor and trusting your doctor can make such a big difference. And, I've gone through, many different things in my life and physical therapy has helped me tremendously. So, I feel that when you have somebody like yourself who does it one-on-one, who is more, they tend to be more compassionate. They get to know you on a one-on-one personal basis. And you can have that relationship that you can't always have with other, physical therapists, that have larger institutions and you can't really have that close relationship. So I really thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your information, sharing your knowledge, sharing your tips and advice. And I really appreciate you and everything that you've done. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about those courses. I really, I think, now before we go, would you like to just give a brief, description about the courses and what they do for you?
Oh, sure. There's a few free courses on there, like little 30-minute courses on neck during the holidays and sitting posture and the shoulder. I actually developed a course during the pandemic with an acupuncturist and a naturopath. And
Oh, no.
each of us did an hour on our version of treating the low back because
Oh,
not everything works for everyone, So I
right.
wanted to offer something. So it's an hour with Mona Chopra, an hour with Penelope McDonald, and an hour with me, physical therapy, naturopath, and acupuncturist, all giving our viewpoint of how to help with your low back issues. And
Oh,
that's
I love that.
that's on the Learn Worlds program.
Oh, that's amazing. So we'll put all that in the description so everybody can, have access to that. And I gotta say, thank you so much, Dr. Tanya, for coming on this show. I really appreciate you and everything you're doing to help so many people. feel better and be able to function better, because pain can really do a lot to a person. It can make a person very depressed. It can really make a person, stop enjoying themselves and living life to their full potential. So it's people like you that give people the ability to, learn how to heal and be able to do the things they want to do and continue to do the things that they enjoy to do. So thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Stacey. I appreciate it. And I want to say one more thing, that
Yeah.
participate in your own recovery and be an equal participant with the person that you go to see, and you will get amazing results.
That's very good advice and so true. 100%. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.